Hey YouTube, let's talk a little bit about protein powder. Is it healthy? Is it good for you? Yes, no, more along the lines of medically speaking. And I'm going to talk to you about this based on being a medical health professional. I am a registered nurse. I work both in the emergency room as well as in intensive care. And I just want to talk a little bit about, like, medically speaking, is protein powder bad for you or good for you? This is all spurred because I read an article today that was like, nutritionalists weigh in on whether protein powder is healthy. And immediately the first thing I thought was, well, that's just kind of clickbait. But I read the article because I'm like, all right, the only way this conversation can end is it's not bad for you, right? Article went on to say, like, protein powder is not as, while a good protein source, is not as good as eating chicken, beef, pork, because those are going to have micronutrients in it, and protein powder is going to have macronutrients in it. And what I mean by that is all, like, your vitamins, your minerals and stuff that is going to be found in a nice juicy steak, you're not going to get in your protein powder. Your protein powder is legitimately just calories and protein, which, if you're supplementing yourself, you should be getting the vast majority of your protein from whole foods. But as a supplementation, it's totally okay to supplement your protein intake with protein powder, right? It's a milk product. As long as you're not lactose intolerant, there's no reason you can't take protein powder. Now, would you recommend taking 100% of your protein from protein powder? No, because you're going to be losing out on all the good stuff that comes in, like a steak, chicken, fish, all those things, whole food sources. Is there a consensus on how much protein powder? Not really, but when I speak to nutritionalists at the hospital, I usually get between like a quarter and a third is okay, as long as you're eating fruits, veggies, and whole foods, right? As long as you're getting like 75% or 66% of that from those whole food sources, yeah, you can supplement with protein. Also, I'm thinking, when I'm having these conversations, I'm talking about a bodybuilder diet, right? The average person, the numbers change constantly, so I apologize. But for bodybuilding's sake, we pretty much have always gone with 1 gram per pound of lean body mass for bodybuilding purposes in protein intake. So I'm like 208 right now. So just, judging by on the up end, I might take 200 grams of protein in a day, and that's bodybuilding optimal. Medically optimal? No, you don't need that much, right? Maybe 0.6 to like 0.8 max. But bodybuilders, we do everything in excess. I'm not a bodybuilder, I'm a powerlifting enthusiast, but you get my point. So, rambling speech over. Basically, the nutritionalists that I've spoke with at the hospital, and I've talked to a couple, have said, as long as you're getting everything from your whole food sources, fill your boots on the protein powder. Now, let's talk about medically for a moment. I work in the ICU, where we have patients that are vented with OG tubes up their nose that go to your stomach, and we're feeding you enterally with basically this calorie slurry thing. Sounds delicious, doesn't it? You can look into it. But basically, when you're lying in a bed and not moving, we need to we got to replace the calories that you're burning somehow. So we feed you through an oral gastric tube. And the thing about this OG tube and this nutrient source that we're doing is it's not really protein dense, right? And what do we use to then supplement that? Protein powder. We use protein powder. We give patients protein powder, right? So if my intensive care patient, who I'm feeding through an OG tube, can get protein powder, you can get protein powder too, right? Obviously, there's not a clinical problem with that. Now, the amount of protein that we're giving these patients is in bodybuilder levels, but my point being is protein powder safe to consume? If I can give it to a critically ill ICU patient, you could probably take it too, right? If you have concerns, as always, ask your doctor. That's my go-to. If you have concerns, ask your doctor. So, like, nutritionally speaking, yeah, protein powder, get your whole foods, and then you can supplement with protein powder. Is it safe? Yeah, we give it to critically ill ICU patients. Like, you're probably okay. I've spoken to nutritionalists who are like, yeah, just don't be silly and take 100% from it. That's the Coles Notes of the video. I hope it wasn't too rambling given how simple of a topic it was, but in my experience, I've seen both sides. There is a concern always with excess protein intake and kidney function. That's a completely separate topic, which we won't really get into right now. It's a bag of cats and another video. But the end of the day, is protein powder safe to take? Yes, absolutely. And should you take it? Yeah, you can. Absolutely. Why wouldn't you? Right? It's a cheap source of protein as opposed to going out and buying steaks. Now, steaks are delicious, but they get expensive. Protein powder is nice and cheap per scoop. That's it, guys. Questions, comments down below. And as always, eat like a bodybuilder and train like a powerlifter.